There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the wild Mustang. Welcome back to The Touch of a Mustang. I've been on a little bit of a break, not really a break, I just haven't seemed to be able to get it done. So it's been easy to let it go. It's easy to not do things, if you know what I mean. And I just finally decided, I want to keep this going. I want to keep talking about Mustangs and the way they help us. And a lot of the feelings I've had about that recently is exactly what I'm going to talk about today. So today we are going to explore the idea of perfection versus progress. And this is one that hit me just this morning. And I guess let me back up for a minute. So summer's here, my kids are out of school, life is pretty busy with lots of fun things, and I absolutely love it. It's not stuff that I'm willing to give up, but at the same time, I want to keep doing some of these things that I feel really passionate about. And as a result, it makes for a pretty tricky balance. Inviting guests on the podcast, I absolutely love, but it's very time consuming to get those set up and to organize schedules. And with summer, I'm less scheduled. And so I decided that it would be really good for this summer that I wanted to hone in on some of the lessons that Mustangs have specifically taught me and how they have helped me to heal and progress and thrive in some difficult circumstances that have happened in my life. And I don't think I'm unique in that way. I did for a long time think, oh my gosh, this is only happening to me. But the reality is that we all have struggles in our life. And if you haven't had them yet, they're going to come. It's just part of living in this world. And I think Mustangs, particularly for me, can be such a huge part of maintaining stability and equilibrium, and not just overcoming those hard times, but really learning from them and allowing them to help me to grow. They've been a huge part of that piece in my life. And it hasn't just been them, it's been combined with other things. But I stand by the idea that they have this incredible power to help us hone in on what we need as humans. And so for these upcoming podcast episodes, it's probably, I won't say for sure, if anyone wants to join me, I would love for them to join me. But most likely it's just going to be me. And for the summer, I really want to focus on just hope and healing and getting through those hard times and the ways that horses and other beings and resources, I hate to say resources, that dumbs things down, but other elements of life like nature can be just a huge part of helping us to thrive in this often difficult world. I don't know that I can say that it's better or worse than other ages of times, but we definitely have unique obstacles that we're facing for healthy, happy, courageous living. So that's what this summer is going to be. So if you want to tune in to me talking about some of the things that have helped me, and of course, always talking about Mustangs, then that's going to be coming up on a weekly basis. I'm going to be optimistic. I feel a little weird saying that because it is a lofty goal when the kids are out of school and we have lots of fun things that we're wanting to do. But if I set that intention, it's much more likely to happen. And so that's going to be my goal. And today, it really goes right along with that. As I mentioned before, I want to talk about perfection versus making progress. So I don't know about a lot of you, but a big base standard in my life has been in the past perfection. I am, whether it was naturally or through my environment or school, very focused on perfection, very fixed mindset, like, yes, you are good at this, or no, you're not. I do feel like a lot of that originated with school and feeling this need, which I can't even tell you where it stems from, but wanting to get good grades. And if I'm honest, a lot of it stems from needing kind of that acknowledgement from other people, which I think is a pretty normal thing. We all want to be confirmed in our being that, we're worthwhile, that we're worth being here. We have things to contribute and give. So anyway, for whatever reason, and I don't think I'm unique in this, again, like I always thought, oh, I have so many unique things. I think a lot more people struggle with the same things that I do. I'm really not that special as I once thought I was, that I once believed that all these things were unique to me, my unique problems, my unique struggles. I find they're pretty universal, or that at least there's large groups that can relate. So one of these things that has been a big part of my life is this idea of perfection. And I think it probably started at some point in school, and I can't really tell you why. And it's carried over into other parts of my life that I wanted this perfect view, a perfect marriage, perfect education, perfect goals. Just this idea that there was at some point this period I would reach in my life where everything was like I wanted it to be. And the reality is that's not reality. Life's a journey. You can get to a place that you're aiming for and realize that you still have 10 mountains to climb behind it. So we have this idea of perfection, but it's not really a truth. I think it is very much an illusion, like a lot of the ideas that we get in our head. So I often moved forward, and especially with horses, with this idea that there was this perfect place to reach. And it's interesting because now I'm doing so many things with my horses, taking my kids on trail rides, going out alone on trail rides, going on trail rides with dogs, that those would have been the point of perfection. Like those were the pinnacles that I was wanting to reach. And I became so desperate and discouraged to reach that I almost gave up. Now that I'm in that place, I see like there are so many more things that we can learn, so many more ways we can grow and progress and keep going forward. Not that I've now reached this pinnacle, everything is perfect. But that is an idea I held a lot in my head. And so when I started training my mare, Sylvanie, I really did have this idea that there was this perfect path to get to that destination. And I would watch a lot of other trainers and think that my experience should look more like theirs. And I've talked about this before, but a lot of times I was comparing things that weren't even comparable. I was comparing full-time professional trainers to myself who had just gotten back into horses after riding them as a child and had a family I was taking care of, was working in another profession and involved in a lot of other things, and felt like I should have the same results as these people who are literally dedicating the majority of their life to horses. Not really a fair comparison for either of us. I mean, let's be honest, if you're dedicating your whole life to horses, you deserve to have better results than someone who is dedicating 10% of their life to horses. But in my mind, I thought my picture should also look perfect. And so when I would do things and they wouldn't turn out the way that I thought they should, I would get so discouraged, and it would be really a difficult fight for me to not give up. I think this is a pattern for my life, that things would get difficult, and this goes back to the fixed mindset. Things would get difficult, and instead of thinking, hey, I just need to keep working and changing things, I would give up, because I had that fixed mindset where I believed either I am good at this and I am meant to do this, or I'm not. And it really helped me to develop a growth mindset, because I really had to step back and say, how much do I want this? And it was because I wanted it so badly, which I could totally delve into a lot of the reasons for why I wanted this so badly. But I wanted so badly to have horses in my life again. They were just such a central part, I felt, of my development and who I was, and something that I so wanted my children to have, which is, again, funny because most of them have vastly different interests. So I had a really strong desire, and that was good because it really carried me forward. So I had this idea of perfection, and I had these expectations in place, and expectations are tricky. They can be really good, but they can also be devastating. I find that's true of most things in life, that there is a really good side to it, and then there is also a really downside to it that can pull us down. So for me, these expectations were really becoming something that was not encouraging and motivating me, but rather was discouraging me. Expectations are really tricky because they are joined to this idea of perfection, that there is this one perfect way that we are going to be able to achieve this result, or that we're going to reach this pinnacle. And so that wasn't happening for me in my horse training. And I have this perfect example. When I did my first ride on my mare, I was mentoring with a horse trainer, and he had just gotten a Mustang that people had not been able to train, that was going to be his Mustang. And for some reason, I put it in my mind that I should be able to get stuff done with my mare, who I'd had a year and been working with fairly consistently over that time. That I should be able to meet milestones before he did. So here again, I'm comparing myself to this professional trainer, which I really don't recommend if you are getting a new Mustang and just doing it for yourself. So I was comparing this to him, and he was getting ready for the first ride and probably doing it properly. And I was also preparing for the first ride. That was definitely a goal that was in my mind. And quite honestly, I was really learning along the way. I didn't have a clear view of what I was doing or how this would happen, just that I wanted to make this happen, which can be a good thing. And so I was kind of determined, I'm going to do my first ride. I had my horse a year, right? So I gave myself some time. I'm going to do my first ride before he does on his Mustang. And, I worked on it. I kept working on it. This wasn't just I'm just going to jump off this cliff and hope things turn out. We'd definitely been working on it. But again, this is the first horse I had ever started under saddle. So a completely new experience for me. And I certainly learned a lot from it. And so I did the first ride, and I had this vision that I would get on my mare. We had bonded so much. It would be calm and beautiful and perfect. And perfect. That's what I wanted it to be, was perfect. And so I got on my mare and I swung my leg over. And the second I was in the saddle, she took off, jumping around. I've definitely seen more exaggerated responses, but it felt plenty exaggerated to me. And I, almost went over her head. I barely stopped myself from going over, but she was kind of bucking and bolted a little bit. And I was just up there thinking oh my gosh, all I want right now is to get off this horse. This is terrifying. But I was already up there, and she'd kind of calmed down. And anyway, it was not my perfect first ride. It's not how I envisioned it, but it was a great start for us. She bolted a few times. We practiced turning a little bit, walked forward. We bolted once or twice again. I made it off her without getting hurt. Not perfect, but pretty good for a first ride. But again, it didn't meet my vision of what I thought it should be. And so this horse trainer had this group, and I posted this video, and, I was disappointed, but also really excited because it's I had done the first ride, and it was a great group of people. But again, remember, at this point in my time, I'm very much coming from a fixed mindset. Either you've got it or you don't. Not something you can grow into. And everyone was super kind, but even the smallest things they said, I just took as criticism, and I internalized and personalized this into how I had been so unthoughtful and wronged my horse, just felt so bad that I hadn't prepared her better for this. And the thing is, like, horses are very strong, resilient animals. They are incredibly strong and resilient. We do them a disservice when we think that our mistakes have destroyed their life. It's just not realistic. I had created this vision in my mind that I had just done something absolutely terrible to my horse by riding her when she wasn't 100% prepared because I was still learning. And in retrospect, it's not the ride I wanted, but it's the ride that got us to where we are. And we still have a great relationship. It didn't damage our relationship. You know, all these thoughts in my head looking back are just so ridiculous, but then they felt so real. And I was just so disappointed in myself that I hadn't done better because, again, I expected this perfection. And so annoyed that, I hadn't gotten perfection. So I let that first ride, which again, it wasn't perfect. I won't claim it was. There's stuff that if I could do again, I would go back and do different. But I also know now I could do a first ride and think that I had prepared properly or the best I could and see that there were places where I could have done better. That's kind of just what life is, even though we don't want life to be that way. But I let all the things I was telling myself in my head. And again, I have this great support system, a really fantastic trainer and other riders who were kind of doing the same thing I was. Very encouraging. But I would pick apart the smallest detail and take that as criticism and internalize this. I don't know if that sounds familiar to any of you, but like I've said, usually I'm not alone in these things that I do. And so I let that first ride stop me for probably 2 months from trying again because it hadn't been perfect. And so what I focused on at that point, and I have thankfully changed a lot because of my horses, but what I focused on at that point was perfection and that I hadn't done it perfectly. And so I wasn't good enough. And that led me to more or less quit for 2.5 months. Quit not being with my horse, but trying to make progress with her. And it's this idea that there is perfection, that there is something perfect. Any really good horse trainer, I am confident, would say they will participate in an activity with a horse and they will still continue to learn. And if we're still learning, that by definition means that we weren't perfect. And so there's this idea of perfection. And then there's also this reality that if we think we've reached perfection, we can no longer progress. And it's so important that we start letting go of the idea of perfection if we want to progress. And I say this 100% from experience. I have had the same scenario with my kids that things should play out perfectly. I have had the same scenario with my marriage that things should turn out perfectly. And when they don't, I let myself, because it is fully myself and fully things in my head, become devastated that they did not meet my expectations. And I'm so grateful my horses have taught me this because I am such a better person because of it. I have learned because of it to accept that my children are on their own path. They're not meant to be perfect. I shouldn't put that burden on them. Same thing with my spouse and same thing with myself. And that's called grace also, that we allow room for growth, that we allow room not for perfection, but for a journey, for an adventure, for this incredible unfolding of growth and development. And when we are so focused on perfection, that will not happen. Sadly, this idea of perfection is an incredibly common belief in our society today. I put up a post a while ago that kind of talked about trying is better than giving 100%. Because if we're always focused on giving 100%, when we feel like we can't give 100%, we'll stop trying. And so I put this post up and it was basically saying like 10%, 40% is all better than 0%. And I related this back to, I teach psychology at the local college, and students will sometimes just not turn work in. You're so much better off turning in a terrible copy and getting 20% or 40% on it than getting that zero when we're talking about grades. But very relatable to life. You are so much better going out with your horse, or going out with your children, or going out with your spouse, or going to work and giving 20% or 40% or 60% or 85%, whatever we feel like we are capable of. You are better going out and giving a percentage than not doing it, because you can't give 100%. You can't give perfect effort. So yeah, even effort, we place a standard of perfection on in our society. So I put this post up and someone commented, "Bro, this is dumb because you won't get better if you don't go 100%, with 3 laughing faces after it." So for this person, and I don't think he's unique either, you have to give perfect effort or you might as well not try. And trust me, I have lived by that motto, that if you're not perfect, you might as well not try. And I can say with confidence from my personal experience, it is so destructive, because that causes us to quit, to stop trying, to label ourselves, to make a situation final because it's not perfect. And the other reality here is no one gives 100% all the time, and especially not in every area. There are some really popular influencers who look like they are giving 100%. Like their posts are like, go strong, go hard, suck it up, do it, don't sleep. And they might be giving their all in that one area, but I can guarantee other areas of their life are falling to pieces, because it's just not possible, because we're human. We can't do 100% everywhere all the time. And there is something to say for quitting. I don't think quitting is a bad thing if it's done out of deliberate decision. But a lot of times we quit because we don't feel good enough, not because we've consciously decided this isn't something that I need or want in my life anymore. We quit marriages, we quit passion projects, we quit something that our soul is just screaming for, not because we've made the deliberate decision, but we feel like we're not perfect in it. Other people are better. And so we should quit. We should give up. So let's get to that practical application of this, because there are a lot of ideas out there that are like, give 100% all the time. And the idea is that, go hard or don't even try. And that this is your purpose, you're called to this, you're perfect for it or you're not. And those are all ideas that I have at some point in my life taken at face value and tried to implement in my life. And it was 100% my Mustangs that taught me so differently. And I'm just so grateful for that experience. I'm so grateful that I didn't quit, because that desire was so strong in me. So I didn't quit and I kept going, even though a lot of times my efforts looked pretty sad, pretty underrated, pretty dang imperfect. I would even go so far to say as laughable. At least they were laughable to me, that like, this is what you're trying to accomplish today. Something so small and so minuscule. But if they have taught me one thing that has helped me so much in my life, it is to look for the smallest amount of progress. I've shared this before, and I share it because it's funny to me, but it's also so demonstrative of how progress can look. So my mare, when I got her, was halter trained at the prison, and she did great in the corral. We could saddle her. I didn't have a round pen, so really I was working with her in the corral all the time. Like that was the space that I had to ease my anxiety that this Mustang I had wasn't going to run away. And I was going to have to call the BLM and be like, I lost the horse that I'm in charge of. So anyway, we did a lot of work in the corral. And then, of course, there comes a time where you're like, okay, I'm done with time in the corral. Like, let's move on. It didn't even take a while for me to take her out of the corral. Like, I was just like, all right, this is going to be great. And I took her out and she had several explosions. And my mare, she is just so forgiving. Like, when I think of the things that she has gone through with me to work beside a human, she's just so incredible, because I created so many problems for us. And this is one of them. So I would take her out of the corral and we'd kind of walk around. And I remember, like, one of the first times I took her out, we were walking just around our house, very short distance. And, some grass touched her belly and she exploded. And I am thinking, oh my gosh, you're a wild horse. You should not be exploding because grass touched her belly. Okay, she wasn't exploding because grass touched her belly. She was exploding because this was a new environment for her. She had never walked around with a human to where she couldn't leave when she wanted to. And that was just the tipping point, that piece of grass. But I didn't understand all that at that time. And so here I am thinking, you're supposed to be this wild horse and you're exploding at a piece of grass. And it amped my anxiety up so high. And yes, just again, my mare, she is such an angel. Crazy moment still, but geez, just looking back at that journey, it's just incredible how Mustangs will hang in there for us. And the sad thing is that so many of us bail on them. They would still be there trying, still progressing. And we just say, it's not perfect. It doesn't look like what my ideal was supposed to be. I'm out. So anyway, I created this tremendous amount of anxiety about leaving the corral. And it really clicked one day that, like, I'm asking her to do this thing that is strange and new for her. And we leave the corral, and I'm sure she just felt this spike in my anxiety, because my mind is just going a million miles a minute about all the things that could happen. She could get away. I'm going to have to call the BLM. She could kick me, and then I'm hurt and in the hospital, and who's going to catch this horse? And so I'm acting out of all this fear, which I'm going to be talking about next week, and all this anxiety. And I'm just feeding this to her in huge scoops of emotion. Like, I'm sure my anxiety was just buzzing through her. So of course she's going to feel anxious, because I'm doing this and I'm terrified because of these stories I'm telling myself in my mind that are life-threatening. They're not life-threatening at all, right? Like, people have lost horses and found them again. And people have, had a horse buck around them, even got kicked by them, which I have, and it's been okay. But I'm making them into these life-threatening scenarios. And so I'm like full on fight or flight mode, anxiety out of every pore of me, I'm sure. And so of course she's like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And so I always tell this story that I laugh about, that I reached this point where it was like, I was so worried about her exploding that I reached this point where I said, okay, we just need to take a step out of the corral and a step back in. And if we can do that, we're okay. Because the problem was, I was topping out her threshold and I was topping out my threshold, to the point where it's like I am no longer in control of my emotions. It's really difficult to control my responses, and we're just feeding off each other. And it's kind of something I laugh about, because that would be our progress for the day, was like taking one more step out of the corral. And I would have to tell myself, like, if I did anything new with her and it went well, that was progress. That strategy was huge for me. It's something I still use today. We'll go out on a ride and I'll be like, all right, we're going to take a dog we haven't taken before. And if we can get through this and make it a great ride, that's a huge step of progress for me. I had to really let go of the idea of perfection, that it was supposed to look like me getting on 6 months, a week, whatever, 30 days, 90 days after I had her and going on this spectacular trail, I had to let go of this idea of perfection that were matched with these expectations that often weren't even founded on reality, just a random idea in my head. I had to let go of that and turn all that attention and energy to we are going to make the smallest amount of progress every day. I put the bridle on without you raising your head. Progress. I got on you and you took one less step forward. Progress. I came to the corral and instead of walking away from me, you came toward me. Progress. Like I am talking minuscule progress. And focusing on that minuscule progress has been changing. It's changed my life, not just with horses. It's changed the way I look at myself. Am I progressing? Am I better? No, I'm not perfect. Here is a reality check. None of us are perfect. No matter how pretty we make our lives look, no matter how much we tell ourselves that we've reached our goals, we are not perfect. But if we can focus on we are making progress, that is something within our reach. That is something doable. I made progress today. And we can focus on that and it can help us grow. Or we can focus on perfection and we will get so discouraged. So one of the greatest lessons my horses have taught me is celebrate the smallest win in progress. That is going to change with the periods of your life, whether it's with horse training or with your personal relationships. Progress is going to look differently. There are going to be times when we will feel like our progress went backwards. That's okay. That doesn't mean we lost everything. We still have the progress we made. What it actually means is we're facing a new challenge. Let me give you an example. My daughter, which I'm sure I'll probably talk more about, is a big piece of my life and a big piece associated with Mustangs. But my daughter, when she was 17 and a half, ran away from home. My kids had been my priority, number one focus in my life. That was my purpose in my life. It felt like I just completely failed at my purpose. Was all the good that I had done all the years before that gone because of a decision she had made? There's so much that goes into it. It's something we can laugh about today, but it was certainly a learning point for me that, her siblings should be kind of grateful for because it was a wake-up call for me of things that I could do differently. But anyway, I saw it as this huge failure, this huge slip back. Everything I had done, everything I had worked for my whole life, because literally I had dedicated my life to my children. My job was focused around if I could be with my children. The job my husband had was based on the idea that I could be home with the kids. So a huge focus in my life. And she ran away and it felt like that connection had been severed. All the work I had done was gone. The relationship and the situation is totally different now. And I can tell you 100%, everything I worked for, all that progress before was not destroyed. It was still there. All those good things I did were still there. But I realized, hey, you have more to learn. You have more growing to do. What can you learn from this situation? And I will tell you, I learned a ton. Is that perfect? Was that my expectation for my children? I'm going to be this dedicated mother, and I hope when my daughter is 17 years old, she's going to run away from home. Was that my perfect picture in my head of what this thing I had dedicated so much time and energy and love to was going to look like? Absolutely not. Quite the opposite. That was the picture of failure in my head. And I definitely did see it as that sometimes, and I definitely could still. Now I'm so grateful because I have learned I can go back and look at that and say, it wasn't a failure. It was part of the journey. It was part of her journey. It was part of my journey. And I would not wish it on myself. It was not enjoyable. It's not what I wanted to have happen. But I grew from it. And I was able to grow from it because I could put focus on progress instead of perfection. That happened a while after I learned it with my horses. So again, they taught me this huge lesson. Stop looking for your life to be perfect. Start enjoying this journey that you have. That is a journey of good things. It's a journey of hard things. It is a journey of unexpected things, 100% unexpected things. It's a journey of what we would call failure or growth and learning opportunities. And that's what makes life beautiful. If we lived in a perfect world where everything was perfect, we no longer had to work, we had already reached the pinnacle of our life, what would we have to work for anymore? We're not perfect. Life is not perfect. It was not meant to be perfect. And I'll just use this podcast as an example. Like, I've been wanting to do it. My goal was to do it once a week. Life got really crazy with kids' graduations and birthdays, and I missed a week. And I can tell you, it could be really easy to let it slide, to not do it anymore. It is so easy to not do things. You don't have to risk. You don't have to worry about if it shows up the way you want. And then I even thought this morning, like, I set a time. I'm going to do my podcast at this time. That time passed. I'm supposed to head out in about 10 minutes to take my kids to the pool. And I could have easily said, like, I don't have time for this. I always set it up. I want it to be perfect. You know, I usually get ready for it. I'm like, I just didn't have the time or energy this morning. So I'm like, I mean, geez, if I'm putting a video out there, I should put some effort into it, right? It should look perfect. I should do the best I can. You know what? Maybe this isn't the best I could do. Maybe I could do better another time. But the other alternative is maybe I wouldn't have done it at all. In fact, I know that's a very likely scenario. I had this very short gap of time where I could work on it. So yeah, I didn't have time to make it ready. I was actually looking at a totally different topic until right before I got on. So I wrote out like 5 notes. I could have made better notes. The whole episode could have been perfect. Not really, because that's an illusion. But I could tell myself in my head, you should make this perfect. You should probably put some makeup on. You should probably be a little bit more prepared. There are a million reasons I could have talked myself out of it because it's not perfect. And I can guarantee you, I've done that before. And if I did that today, then I would have no progress. I would have no episode. But I feel like this is such an important topic. And again, like, I want to share with people the lessons that we can learn for our life that make it better. And so many of those were taught to me by my work, working with specifically my Mustang mare, the first Mustang I got. And that's something I want to keep sharing. So will that sharing look perfect? Nope. It's something I've had to learn. I will put social media posts out there and I'm like, I spelled or did something wrong and I totally want to redo it. But no, if I do, like, I don't have time to make it perfect. I don't have the capability to make life perfect, and neither do you. Life is not perfect. Let go of the idea that there is some perfect life out there for you. The perfection of life lies in taking this journey, embracing the things it has to teach you, continuing every day to make progress, no matter how small it is, no matter what area it is. It's probably not horses for everybody. It might be learning a musical instrument. It might be finding a better job. Whatever it is, like, if we can focus on progress, even if it is so small, then you are still moving in the right direction. And that is what is so important. So if I have any message today, let go of this idea that things should play out in this perfect way and focus on just taking one small step or one big step. Some days you're going to have huge, great big steps. Celebrate those too. Or the smallest steps, celebrate that. But if you're moving in the right direction, you are moving and you're progressing. And that progress, continual progress, if perfection is anything, that's what it is. So let go of perfection. Enjoy this messy, crazy life that is nothing like you expected, and just jump into it and start working towards the things you want, even if it's the smallest thing every day. Again, this summer, it's probably just going to be me. I need a little more time. I want more time to spend with my kiddos, do those fun things, but I still want to do this. So it's probably just going to be me. And it's going to be a summer all focused on just hope and healing and growth. And I'm really excited for the things I have to talk about next week, unless it changes last minute because something else comes in my head. We're going to talk about faith-based living versus fear-based living. And let me tell you, I am an expert in this area because I have lived in fear-based living for so long. And I recently heard this opposing idea, faith-based versus fear-based, and I absolutely loved it. And I think it's a great topic. And we have so much to learn about it. And again, so much application for my horses. So many things that have been relevant to my experience with my Mustangs. Thank you for joining us in learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.